Hi, folks. Well, welcome to a special Rockposers chat. Something I haven't done before. Obviously, normally when I'm chatting to people, it's about albums or tours or what have you. But having chatted to a few people over Christmas, we were talking about the impact of music on your lives. Doesn't have to be tracks particularly that you love or your favourite tracks. And I thought I'd start asking some chums and musicians what were their sort of tracks? What were their top 10 where it's impacted on life? And I've got to say, my first guinea pig, or guest, should I say, is none other than a fantastic musician, a great guy, someone I've seen many a time, and looking forward to seeing again soon. And that, of course, is Mr. Danny Bryant.
Hey, Dan. How you doing?
I'm doing really well. Obviously, you are doing fantastic at the moment.
Yeah. I was not well last year, years of kind of being an alcoholic and things. But today is actually, I'm a year sober today, funnily enough.
Congratulations, mate.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels good.
You're looking really well. And obviously, I've been seeing your posts on social media, etc. Obviously, you are enjoying life with a renewed vigor, shall we say?
I am. I mean, the thing is, I always thought, well, things won't be as fun if I can't drink. Playing won't be as fun. Your mind tells you all those different things, but actually it's the opposite.
Well, let's start off with we're going to do a tracks in any particular order. So pick a track that's impacted your life.
Well, I must just say, I mean, when I came down to trying to pick 10, it's not that easy. I thought it would be hard to pick 10, and then I wanted to pick more. I actually spoke to a couple of friends about it, and they were like, "Oh, that's tough as well." Fellow sort of musos. I'll have to go to the first. Obviously, the first guy everybody knows that kind of knows my story, that really impacted me and changed my life and my path in life and on music, and that's Walter Trout. And the first song of his that I really was taken with was a song called "To Begin Again."
I mean, obviously, for those people who don't know, obviously, you've got a very long association with Walter, being a protege of his for many years, and being a very close personal friend. I mean, I'm not surprised there's a Walter track in there. And that is purely because that's the first one you heard. That is your impact.
Yeah, I mean, and it, looking back on it now, it kind of it made me realize, because there's two parts of what I love. I love songwriters and I love guitarists on the blues side mainly, and that kind of, particularly that song does a very good job of mixing the two, in the sense that it's a ballad, kind of a ballad, with great lyrical content and great guitar. So that was kind of the blueprint for me, really.
Because I mean, you started into sort of blues at a very young age, and it's there's always that stigma that blues is old man's music, which isn't entirely true. So I mean, what was it that about the blues that grabbed you?
Well, I think it was just the intensity of it, and I think when you get a guitar, the kind of, it's one of the coolest genres of music to gravitate towards, because there is a lot of guitar in it. Usually the main guy in a blues band plays harp or plays guitar. There are a lot of guitar breaks in it, and I must say a lot of the songs, that including that one I've just mentioned, come from the kind of year that I started properly, when I was 15, which is 1995. And it only really occurred to me when I wrote the list that quite a lot of these songs come from that period.
I mean, obviously, because I guess I was sort of I thought, well, I ought to have a think myself, what sort of tracks. And I guess it's round about that age, sort of 14, 15, when music really sort of took on a meaning, as it were.
Yeah, it's like a musical coming of age, I think.
It is. So what's your next track?
The next track, now I'm trying to do this in some, the next track would be Rory Gallagher, "Tattooed Lady."
I mean, Rory Gallagher, I mean, what can we say about Rory Gallagher that's not been said? Not a lot, really.
No, I mean, what I will say about it is that my parents had a video of him that they'd recorded from the TV back in the older times, and I think it was from Cork Opera House, and he does "Tattooed Lady" on there, and it's just I mean, I just couldn't take it in. I didn't know what was happening. It was just stunning. And I actually think, yeah, that was 95 as well. And I think what had happened is he just passed away. And so I think perhaps the BBC or Channel 4 were doing some kind of tribute, and my dad had taped it. So I got into this guy, and I was like, this is amazing. And I spoke to my dad, and he said, yeah, sadly, he just passed away. So didn't ever get to see him live. Had it been a couple of years difference, I'm sure I would have had the opportunity.
No, I never got a chance to see him. He almost passed me by. I was aware of his stuff, and I knew there were certain tracks of his I liked.
Yeah.
I think when Michael Caton released his sort of Rory Gallagher tribute album, which I absolutely loved, and I went back and revisited sort of Rory's albums, and they sort of impacted on me far more then. I guess I sort of didn't really understand or listen properly before, if that makes any sense.
Well, I think that's great. And I know Michael Caton, he's a great guy. And I think that would probably make him very pleased, because when you do albums like that, that's kind of the point of them, isn't it? Is to make people remember. And it's what we all do, Dan, in music is we find someone, and then we find who influenced them, and go back to the source, so to speak. And that happens in everything, doesn't it? And I mean, I'm sure it happens to writers, to actors. I mean, that's the beauty of it in a lot of ways.
It is. It opens that rabbit hole, and down you go, and I'll branch off into all kinds of directions, and discover stuff that you just weren't aware of, and you think, how on earth did I miss this at the time?
Yeah, no, very true. It's a good point.
So what's up next?
Well, as we've said that, I'm going to pick. This is another album from that time. I'm going to pick Eric Clapton playing "Groaning the Blues" from his album From the Cradle. And that really was an album of him paying, massive tribute to all the Chicago and Texas and everywhere else blues masters that had influenced him. So you've got Freddie King, you've got Buddy Guy, you've got a little bit of Robert Johnson, you've got Jimmy Rogers and all the Muddy Waters stuff. And I think that's kind of like what Michael Caton did with the Rory album. That really sent me down a rabbit hole of discovering people like Otis Rush and that. And to me, "Groaning the Blues" on there is the standout track, and probably I would say just about some of the best guitar playing I've ever heard.
I mean, obviously, old Slow Hand is up the top of the tree. I'm going to say for myself, some of his albums, again, probably don't grab me as much as other ones. I mean, Pilgrim, which is not, but I would say an over and out blues album of his, but that's one that's always grabbed me.
It's a great album, really good songwriting in that. It's one of my favourites as well. Yeah, I mean, I think he's got such a body of work. There's something for everybody, but when he really wants to play, that's the album to go to. I think that and Journeyman's a great album.
It is. Do you find a question I've asked friends who are musos about how they listen to music? I have no musical talent whatsoever. I just listen to music as a music fan. And my question was always, do you listen to music differently? Are you trying to pick up certain things? Are you looking for not necessarily mistakes, but where they brushed over stuff, or you're trying to work out how they done particular bridges or choruses, etc.?
No, I think it happens organically. I think you just listen to the songs and enjoy them. You certainly don't look for mistakes. The only time your ears become really sensitive is when you're making an album yourself.
Yeah.
Because you're listening to the whole thing and the way it's produced. But I think it's not enjoyable if you're trying to dissect it. Of course, sometimes you use songs as a kind of a course in how to learn, like what's this guy doing here? Oh, you need a bridge in order to make to lead into a great chorus and so forth. And the trick that some of the great songs, the chorus is the same chords as the verse, but it just really lifts little things like that. But in day-to-day listening, no, not at all.
What you got up next?
Well, we will go with, let's go with Bob Dylan, "Shooting Star" from the album Oh Mercy.
Okay, so what got you into Bob Dylan? I mean, an interesting guy. Is not really a fair description. Uh, I guess I got a love hate with him. The stuff I really like and other stuff I don't really get at all. I guess. I mean, what is it about him that grabs you?
Well, when I first heard him, I hated him. My dad used to play it constantly, and then my dad kind of sat me down, and once he explained the lyrics, and once I got a bit older and started understanding things about life, it made a lot of sense to me. And I love that song. I love the production on it, which is Daniel Lanois. And there's a kind of production that's sort of swampy, and it's almost like things are implied, for want of a better way of explaining it. It's kind of a ghost of a record in a way, and I really love that. And the song is very mournful. It's just when it comes down to it, it's just a really, really great song.
As I said at the start, I mean, it's not necessarily tracks that are your favourites. It's just ones. I mean, there's tracks that, again, as I said at the start, there's tracks that I love, and I couldn't tell you why. They just happen at certain times. I guess as an example for me would be Louis Armstrong, "What a Wonderful World."
That's a great song.
Mum and Dad had a 7-inch single of it, and they had an old Garrard record deck, just a standalone thing. And I must have been pretty young, probably 8 or 9, and I just played that again and again. I thought it was one of the greatest things I'd ever heard.
And I bet when you hear that, it takes you straight back there.
Oh God! Well, this is the whole point of this segment.
Yeah,
absolutely. I'm there sitting in the sitting room next to it, the lid up, and just that warm sound, and just like, it's incredible.
Yeah, that's totally it. I think that's what it is, and I think you can overthink it, and also you can give it massive thought. It's as deep or as on one surface as you want it to be, but it certainly is amazing how you can put on a song and it can take you straight back to somewhere you've been or a life you've lived or something.
So what's the next contestant on your list?
We're going to go with some straight blues, and we got Albert Collins and Frosty.
Oh, what a fantastic song. Absolutely fantastic song. Again, Albert Collins is I've probably only got 2 or 3 of his albums, I think, off the top of my head. What's taking you to that particular track out of his catalogue?
Well, it's kind of like the ultimate example of how to play a shuffle blues. Albert was the best shuffle guitar player ever, in my opinion. And he's just really hard to imitate. I mean, really, really hard. I mean, he tuned his guitar to F sharp minor and then capoed it to get different keys. And it's, I don't know, he's just marvelous. Just great tone and great aggression. Just untouchable, really. So unique as well.
He was unique. I mean, I guess I got a love-hate. I've used that phrase a few times now. A love-hate with the blues. So I tend to go more towards the heavy end of the blues, hence Michael Caton, because obviously he's the dirty. I mean, he's so the dirty end of the blues. And yet there's other stuff which probably you'd think, well, you probably wouldn't like that. And I think to myself, yeah, but I do. But again, I don't know why. It's is it because it's laid back? Is it what is it I'm tuning into? What is it I'm hearing? And I don't know. But that particular song is absolutely superb.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's I'd be interested to, if you ever do it, to hear your 10. But because again, you asked me how I approach things as being a musician, and I would be interested in how you approach things as a writer. So it's an interesting thing you've come up with here, actually. And I would say that some songs like Frosty maybe aren't, they don't have as deeper impact on me in terms of what they might emotionally make me feel. But then it's a great song to listen to before you go out on stage or something like that.
I think it's different because there is emotion and there's memory, and they're not necessarily the same when it comes to a particular song.
Very true. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it like that, but it's a good point.
I mean, there's one. I'll give you another example, one of mine, which would be Queen, "Who Wants to Live Forever." I can't actually ever listen to that song.
Yeah.
Because I'll just be in floods of tears. I just can't listen to it because it reminds me of my brother. So that's an
Yes.
emotional thing. You know, it's a fine song, but on an
Yeah.
emotional level, it's just a whole different ball game.
Yeah, it's maybe too raw a song for you.
Oh God, absolutely, yeah. Funny, I was rewatching Highlander over Christmas. I had to skip that part of the film. It's just like, oh
Yeah.
God, I know what's coming up. Quickly fast forward it.
But that's okay, and also that is a big compliment to the song as well.
Well,
If it
of
can
course.
make you do that, I mean, other people have written songs about loss and loved ones and death, and it hasn't really had the impact. So, that it shows that when an artist can do that, it's actually in tune with what happened.
Again, that's me in awe of all you musicians, because I say it's just not a talent that I've got. It's not an avenue I've ever gone down. So I'm always fascinated to what's drawn people in, what drives them to play. I just think, is it that hard? Surely I should have a go. And I look at it and just like nothing clicks for whatever reason. Obviously, I'm just destined never to pick up a guitar or.
Well, I can't do anything else, so if that helps. I'm useless at everything else, really.
Well, that's a fair answer. We can't argue on that. That's a fair answer. What's up on your list next, Danny?
Let's go with King of the Blues, B.B. King, and I think his greatest ever song from his greatest album, and the song is Chains and Things.
B.B. King, again, that's another guy. I had a chance to see him, except it clashed with another gig. He was coming over. It was a blues thing they put on at Crystal Palace Park in the Bowl. Concert. They'd sort of resurrected the concert bowl. They spent tens of thousands. I don't think it'd been used after Rick Wakeman and his Drowning Dinosaurs were there, but but it was on the. There were. I mean, the lineup. I can't remember who. I think Kenny Wayne Shepherd might have been on the bill, and I can't remember who else was on. I mean, this is going back. This is late 80s, maybe 1990. But ZZ Top were playing Milton Keynes Bowl, so that just sort of that trumped it. So I missed the chance of seeing BB King, and that was the only chance I've ever had to have seen him. It's just never come up again for me.
No, he was great. One time I saw him, and Gary Moore was the opener, so that was double stuff. You'd have enjoyed that, I'm sure.
I've only seen Gary Moore once, and that was on a weird Monsters of Rock gig at Wembley Arena. It was opened by the phenomenal Y&T. There was Gary Moore with Skunk Anansie on bass, and White were headlining. But Gary Moore was in one of his moods, and he had the right hump about something, and unfortunately, the whole set suffered because of it, which was incredibly disappointing.
I think he could be like that a bit. I remember doing a festival with him, and he was very much like that.
But Gary's one of those guys. I would think that blues guitarists can do rock, but not many rock guitarists can do blues. Gary Moore would be an exception, I think, for that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And he really could play blues. I mean, he really could, and he could play rock as well. I mean, I can't play rock, so I'm not an aficionado on how it should be, but I could tell he could play both.
I guess we got to give him credit for really resurrecting the blues scene in the UK. I don't think that's an unjustified statement, because I think it's pretty stale at the time. And then when he brought his first sort of blues album out, I think he made a lot of rock fans, blues fans off the back of that as well.
But yeah, totally, he did. I mean, the whole thing was Virgin were just going to do it as a kind of, his label would as just a kind of small project, and it ended up being Still Got the Blues ended up being his biggest album, and massive. I think it's one of the biggest selling blues albums in history, actually.
Is it really?
Yeah,
that doesn't surprise me actually.
No,
because it again, because of Blue Album, but it was also a crossover album, as I said, for a lot of people.
Well, I think they thought he was going to lose all his rock fans, but I think he retained 99% of them, and obviously got a load of blues fans with it. So it was a huge success. It was the right album with the right songs with the right artist at the right time, and that doesn't happen often.
Have you never fancied sort of dipping your toe into the darker side and trying a bit of rock just to see if you could pull it off, or is it just something you think I just can't do that?
The closest I've come is I was good friends with Bernie Marsden,
Yeah,
and
excellent.
and he played on my album, and we were going to do an album. Actually, we were going to do an album together using Gary Moore's backing band, and we went to a studio and everything, and then COVID locked that down,
Yeah.
and then Bernie passed away, so that never ended up happening. So I was researching that idea a little bit more, although the album was going to be a blues album. But a couple of times, Bernie, he was funny because he'd send me an email and he'd say, and I don't have any rock background, and he sent me an email one time saying, do you want to jam? I'm playing in London in 2 days' time. And I said, I'd absolutely love to. And he said, okay, well, actually, my guitarist can't make it, so here's the set list. And you can't tell the guy who's written Here I Go Again and Fall for Your Loving that you don't know how to play them. So there's me for 2 days constantly learning these songs. And I said, I've got all of them. I said, I left Fall for Your Loving till last. I said, because I thought it would be the easiest, and I haven't got round to learning it. He said, okay, we'll just bring you on after that. We'll open with that. Well, he didn't. He just brought me on straight away, and I got through with it. I got it done. It was an amazing night to play those with him, and I just forgot the songs after that. And then about a year later, I was in HRH in Sheffield, and I was due on just before him. He was headlining it, and I checked into the artist backstage place, and the lady on reception said, "There's a message for you from Bernie Marsden. Can you go to his dressing room?" And I said, "Yeah." And he walked in. I knew it was going to happen. He said, "Hello, boy." That's what he used to call me. He said, "Do you remember the songs?" And every part of me wanted to say, no, no. And I went, "Yeah, of course I do." And he goes, "Right, we're on straight after you." But he was magical, and he was one of those guys that could just play anything. So that's a long answer to your question, I think.
I Bernie, I absolutely love. I mean, well, Whitesnake is a band that's very close to my heart. It's one of the first rock bands I ever got into, because one of the first albums someone gave me a cassette at school. I would have been, I don't know, oh blimey, 13, maybe going on 14, and that was Live in the Heart of the City, and the rest is history. Really,
That is a great album.
yeah. For me, that's again, that's another record that's got a special place. Not only because I love it, just because it's one of the first albums I ever owned.
And you know what we've led into, because I was going to pick a Bernie album, but we're going to go with that. So let's
Okay.
add that in.
Okay.
So that takes us down to done 7, I think. Yeah.
Cool.
So that's a nice segue into that.
It is. I mean, it's just, it was a very sad day when Bernie left us.
Yeah, it was awful.
Just, you know, you can't give the man enough compliments, really.
No, and he was lovely. I remember I was doing an album called Blood Money.
Right.
And he said he'd come and play on it, and he got lost and he was late, and I thought, he's not going to turn up. And there he was. He turned up and he said, "Can you get my guitar in from the car?" And it was the Beast, you know, his 59 Les Paul, just on the back seat of the car. He was like, "Take it out, you can play it." He was lovely. I made him some toast and a cup of tea.
I bet you had a bit of a tingly feeling.
Oh, massive.
Guitar in your hand.
Massively. I got to play that a few times, because when we went to look at that studio together, one of the last times I saw him, he brought it with him just so I could sit and play it for half an hour. Yeah, he was really special.
Fantastic stuff. What we got up next?
Right, we have got a bit of Stevie Ray Vaughan with Crossfire.
Now, Stevie Ray Vaughan, I guess he's you generally hear his name when someone says, "Oh, there's another Stevie Ray Vaughan clone," which might be true, but I think it's a bit insulting, really, for the people who are playing. But it's very difficult for lots of particular areas of the blues not to sound like Stevie Ray Vaughan, because of course he was the man who, as it were, invented that particular sound.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, there certainly were a lot of Stevie Ray clones, because, you know, but that's testament to how influential he was.
But that's just music, isn't it?
Yeah, and you're gonna hear Stevie Ray. I mean, obviously Stevie Ray's a massive kind of mix of Albert King and Jimi Hendrix. So you're gonna hear that in everyone's playing. I mean, it's just part of the DNA.
Yeah.
But when you really take Stevie Ray Vaughan for Stevie Ray Vaughan on his own, he was one of the greatest players of all time.
Why have you picked that particular song of his out of his catalogue?
Because it was the first one that hit me, really. Coming back to that period in sort of 95 when I bought all these albums, I bought In Step because that was the last studio album he'd done with Double Trouble. And that was kind of the single. So I think I'd heard it on MTV or something like that. And it's just, it sounds like an old Stax song. It's really good, you know.
Because that was the thing about him. I mean, the fact that he had videos on MTV.
Yeah.
You know, when you think, well, a blues guitarist is on MTV with a video, it's just like, it was kind of mind-boggling, really, to start off. The fact that they were not daring, but the fact they were prepared to play his videos. It just shows, you know, again, another guitarist who crossed over.
Yeah, I mean, just, you know, he had everything. And you know, he's probably one of the most influential musicians, certainly, you know, within the guitar realm that's ever lived.
I think you're probably right with that. It just, when you list people who have been influential, and it's really, if you really want to be tough, it's quite a small list.
Yeah.
You know, you get Stevie Ray Vaughan, you add in Jimi Hendrix. I would put in someone like B.B. King.
Yeah.
You know, there's people, and you look at how many people they've influenced, not people that sang them, and just how that influence has spread out into the rock world as well. I mean, it's just immense, that impact. I mean, to have, you know, one person or several people have that much impact on the globe musically.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if you were asking, you know, I only know this from reading interviews. I've never got to ask him myself, but if you to ask Angus Young who his favorite guitar player was, he'd say Buddy Guy. You know, so there's a lot of blues influences a lot of different genres of music and a lot of different, certainly within guitar, a lot of different players, and then they go off and do their own thing. But yeah, he really had something that kind of brought it to the mainstream.
So did you say that about Angus? Yeah, because, you know, people would assume he'll name some hard rock guitars, whatever. But it always can take you by surprise. You know, when someone says who their favourite musician. I mean, you take Lemmy, you'd think, well, who's he going to like? Well, Little Richard was his favourite.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. And you know, Lemmy and Ozzy Osbourne would name the Beatles as well. And you know, I think with Angus Young, if you really listen to him, I mean, he's an incredible player, and you know, great tone. But a lot of what I hear him playing is blues in the best possible way, you know, and it's so exciting. He takes all those exciting aspects of it, and you know, it's which leads me on to Thunderstruck from Live at the River Plate Stadium.
Now that, if you're going to talk about a live gig, to have been at that gig would have just been mind-blowing, I think.
Oh yeah, but didn't they do a good job of capturing it? You know, capturing it on the way it's filmed, and you can really feel the excitement of it.
I think it's one of the best live concerts that's been filmed that I've seen.
I totally agree. Yeah, so that is my number 9.
I think I watched it again probably only about maybe 3 or 4 months ago.
I'm the same. It comes out at least twice a year.
I was going to touch where you said the Beatles there. Again, something that when I see comments on social media, and you know what comments on social media are like, normally you have to take them with a lot. But when you see someone, oh, I hate the Beatles, and you think, you don't hate the Beatles, or
No.
You can't, if they're not your thing, fine. You know, if you can't ever listen to them, fine. But again, if any artist that's had any impact, they are number one.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know,
we were
watching.
We were watching a documentary over Christmas. I can't remember which one it was now, and it hit us. This is me and my wife hit us both again. Just how these four lads, these four working class lads from Liverpool, could come out with this stuff which was just so out there, because that they weren't basing it on anybody else.
No, they wrote the map. I mean, you really can't. You just can't overstate it. Really,
a different way. They must have been wired a different way to come out.
They must have been, and just I don't know. That's when it gets sort of mystical. How they all just the synergy of them all getting together and finding each other, and they all added what no one of those would have done it on their own. They all added exactly what they needed, and the chemicals of those parts. And I don't think you'll ever really see that again.
No, I don't think you will. Again, one of those artists that, again, there's probably, I can only probably name two other artists who did it, which would be Prince and David Bowie, who managed to reinvent themselves again and again. I mean, and still remain successful.
Yeah. I mean, I've been listening to a lot of David Bowie at the moment, and just the fact that he even made his death an art, with Black Star and that song Lazarus, and his son did the music video, and he's kind of, he basically every stage of his life he turned into a work of art right up until his death, and he kind of disappears into that closet. He was, yeah. You don't get many of them.
No, and I was explaining to a chum, we were talking about him, and I said, people forget, he invented stuff on the internet before other people were doing the internet, like digital downloads. He was doing that in the 90s.
Yeah.
No one else was selling digital downloads or create. He's creating these whole domains for his music fans, which no one else was doing. It's incredible stuff.
It's weird. It's almost weird. They're so forward thinking, and that's why I was just coming back to Dylan. It's like the minute someone kind of caught up to what he was doing, he was already 2 miles down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
To have that kind of the balls to do that when everyone's saying you're great and this is it and you've done it and you're the new messiah and everything, and you're already fed up with that and not there anymore. Take some guts.
I always remember a quote someone said about, an unfair quote about Bob Dylan, when someone asked who's Bob Dylan, and they said, "Oh, he's the bloke on the We Are the World video who can't sing."
Well, yeah, but obviously, there's a lot of you can't make everyone like everything.
No, you don't, and you don't have to like Bob Dylan
to understand,
appreciate or to understand what again, another artist whose impact on music and on musicians has been just incredible.
I was reading a thing that Tyson Fury, the boxer, said, and he said he's got admiration for anybody that puts on a pair of gloves and get into a ring, because it takes guts. And I think that's like that with anybody that doing music or writing or anything. It's art, and whether someone likes it or not isn't really the point. It's nice if they do, but it's having the guts to kind of express yourself.
And of course, it's how it impacts people on different levels. Some people get stuck into it, and they'll sit obviously now again with LP sales being as big as they'll sit there and read the lyrics and really get into it. But are they getting more enjoyment than someone who just sits and listens to it and enjoys it? It has different impacts in different ways.
I don't know, and I guess I've thought about it a lot, and the conclusion I sort of come to at the moment is it doesn't really matter. If they're listening to Bob Dylan and getting it on some deep intellectual level that maybe he didn't even intend anyway, well, then that's fine. Or if they're just listening to it and humming it when they go to work, that's equally fine. It's entertainment.
That's exactly how I see it. Yeah, I mean, yeah. You get, again, it's another one of those arguments. You can go down a very, very deep rabbit hole with that.
You can't win. I don't do arguments. You can't win them.
No, you can't. It's like, as I say about social media, it's a magnifying glass on the stupid and ignorant,
Yeah, well, it just, I'm sort of like, yeah, fair enough. I mean, and it is fair enough. Everyone can have their opinion, as long as I'd call someone out if they're just being really nasty to someone.
Yeah.
But, that comes down to them as a person more than the person they're being nasty to.
Where are we up on the list now? I'm losing
track.
We've got
one more song.
One more song to go.
we have got one more song, and it's Tom Waits and Jersey Girl.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting choice. I wouldn't have put you down as a Tom Waits fan for some reason. I don't know
No,
why
I
I'm
love
saying that.
No, I love him, and I'll tell you how I discovered him years ago. Back in the days when you had a Discman, way
Yeah,
before
yeah.
iPads and everything. I used to have a girlfriend that lived the other side of London, so I used to go and visit her. This was when I was about 18, and then I used to come back and go to King's Cross and get the tube and then get home back to Royston. And there used to be a record shop, really short-lived in King's Cross Station, basically a CD shop.
Yeah.
And it clearly wasn't doing well after about 3 weeks. And I just read Blues Review. I used to be a subscriber to Blues Review, the American magazine, when it was still there. And they'd had Tom Waits on the front cover. So I bought this Tom Waits album thinking it was a blues album. And I put it on and thought, I don't like this at all, because I hadn't kind of developed certain tastes in writing and things. And then this song Jersey Girl came on, and it really, really hit me. And that's how I fell in love with Tom Waits. The girl's gone, but the songs are still there.
But yeah, I mean, something I've said many times, you can talk about genres, and I mean, and God, well, if you ever see my posts on Facebook about some of the genres I get on email, I swear someone's making them up. I'm not making them up. Honest, these are emails, genuine emails that I get, and I just, well, what is that? I literally don't understand what that is. I've
seen them on your. Sometimes I've checked your Facebook post just for a laugh to see what you've been sent by various publicists. What's the most outlandish one you can think of?
Oh, what was the last one? It was, I mean, just melodic death metal always makes me laugh. You think, how could it be melodic? That's just me. But it was something like Space Acids, alt something. It was about 14 words long, and I'm thinking, come on, you're having a laugh now, aren't you? You must have. Someone's had a bet in the PR office to how many words can we slip into a press release? It's got to be that, surely.
I think melodic death metal. That's kind of
that always tickles. That's one that always tickles me. That one. That's a corker. That one. But that is a genuine genre.
But it wouldn't be hard to get to number one in the charts of that, would it? Because there can't be too many listings. I've released my album. It's number one in melodic death metal.
I always look at it. I don't get into the whole genre thing. For me, there's two types of music: the music I like and the music I don't like.
And that's exactly how I feel.
It's as simple as that. And I have quite some of the stuff I listen to, but you go, Christ, you listen to that. Like I'll listen to something like Ozric Tentacles, but you go, I'd never put you down to listen to that. I said, well, I don't know why, but I just love it. It's like,
well, that's the thing. You can't, you can't shut yourself off to something that you like. I mean, I understand why labels have to put things in certain categories, because otherwise it's a nightmare to sell it. And obviously, if you, in the days when we used to go to record shops, I would first of all go and browse blues. But nowadays, when things are coming at you from Spotify or YouTube or anything, you're not looking under a genre of music. So it's all fair game.
I mean, that's, Spotify. Well, there's again a poison chalice to talk about. But if you're going to take a positive from that, if you're on a playlist and you have it so it will go and play similar stuff, or it will play, it will carry on playing at the end of a playlist, and you do discover stuff, or even tracks. I'll hear songs, I think it's like I do it on my own music player on the PC, just linked to my music album, and I think, oh, this is good, what's this? And I think it's actually in my collection. I think, I mustn't have played this for about 15 years. I've forgotten all about this album. And you can revisit stuff or discover stuff, and I think it's for that point, it's phenomenal.
I agree. I mean, I think there are a lot of advantages to it, and I think that when, you just kind of have to accept change sometimes. I mean, I know as an artist, what Spotify plays us and what downloads pay us is useless, but equally, you know, a lot of people discover you that might not have done. So
But going
it's
back to
another one of them.
Going back to Michael Caton, quick, he's someone who's embraced the sort of the whole digital side of things very early.
Yeah.
He doesn't sell physical product at all, and
No.
hasn't for years. I know there's been some one or two sort of deals with various labels who have said, "Oh, we want to do a run," but it's not something he's sat down to do. You know, and he's done digital for years. And he's fully embraced it and has said he makes money out of it. But I guess because he hasn't got a label, you know, grabbing their 85% worth out of it before the poor artist gets their tuppence halfpenny.
Yeah, I mean it's good he's embraced it, and you know, all power to him. I think the thing with I mean the vinyl thing is exciting. My last 4 or 5 albums have been on vinyl, and I never thought that would happen, you know, and that's great to see it on vinyl. That's the thing I get excited about. And I think with CDs and vinyl, I think it shows, you know, sometimes people are just buying a souvenir. A lot of people buy vinyl from me and say that they say something like, "Oh, I need to get a record player now," but they're just buying it because it's a nice souvenir, you know.
I think you're absolutely right. I know people who buy vinyl, they haven't got a record player.
No.
I mean, I've never stopped buying vinyl. You know, I've got the same record player that Mum and Dad bought me for my 21st birthday. You know, and it's never changed. And I still buy vinyl. I do think there is vinyl and there is vinyl. I know certain labels that have pressed vinyl off MP3s rather than a proper mastered for vinyl recording.
You master them separately and everything.
Yeah, I know there's certain labels have done various underhand things, just jumping on the bandwagon, you know.
Yeah.
And they'll put, "Oh, it's 180 gram." Well, yeah, the weight really doesn't come into it. That's a marketing thing, you know.
Yeah. No, I know. We actually have a really good in Royston, where I live, a really good record shop that's opened up. It's doing well. It's called Revolution Records, and that you can get all different types of music, and so it's very positive, you know, the way that vinyl's made a comeback, and long may it continue.
Well, it's twofold. I say, for you as an artist, I say it is a revenue stream coming in.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, it's merch is where you're going to make the money.
Yeah, but also from a point of view that when you make an album, you know, it's always nice when the album's signed off, and then when the artwork's done, and then finally when you get to approve the album, and then you get the copies of it. It's way more exciting when you open the box and you look at the vinyl version, you know, as opposed to the CD.
I think if you listen to an album on vinyl, maybe I'm right, maybe I'm right, I think you tend to listen to it differently.
Yeah,
I don't mean sitting down and reading the lyrics or looking at the album, see, both which are, you know, great things to do. I think you tend to pay attention more if you listen. Yeah, because you can't just skip a track, and you can't, you know, it's not a background noise. It's almost, you know, it's I can't think the right word really.
But that's the way people used to consume music, was it? Wasn't it? They'd buy an album and they would listen to one side and then another side and fall in love with the whole album. And also, when you're making an album nowadays, you know, you're aware that we used to make a CD, so you would see it as a continuous flow of maybe 10 or 12 songs. Yeah. Now you realise you've almost got a set 1 and a set 2, as in a side 1 and a side 2. So it does make the whole approach different.
So you set out and you think, you know, how's it going to flow then?
Yeah,
with that LP in mind, even if it's going on a CD, it's changed the way that you're approaching and writing an album.
For me, it has, yeah, and certainly how I'm sequencing it once it's recorded.
That's interesting. I hadn't sort of thought of it like that. Yeah, I guess, I mean, you see, because I'm an old git. You see, vinyl. You know, vinyl was what you bought, and you'd read whichever music magazine, you know, Kerrang Melody Maker or what have you, and you'd buy it without actually ever hearing it. You know, oh dear, the danger. You know, you could have bought something and it could be awful.
I know, good times.
Yeah. You can get a bit sort of, you know, bleary-eyed and sort of think back on those times. But both ways are good, I think. I don't think there's a bad way of discovering music.
No, I don't. As long as music's around, then I think we're all okay.
I think we are. Danny, it's been, as always, a pleasure talking to you, mate.
And you, Dan. Really nice. Nice to see you looking well, and hope everything's good with you.
I put on a good facade.
I know you deal with some...
It's been interesting to hear the songs that you've chosen and the reasons why. And it's just, again, for me, on a personal level, it's just an insight into what the way people consume and listen to music, because it's everybody's different.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on board. I certainly enjoyed it.
Thanks very much indeed.
Take care, mate. Bye-bye. Speak to you soon, yeah?
Yeah, thanks now.
Bye-bye. Bye.